What if the thing you've been praying your way out of is actually the thing God's been walking you through on purpose? What if the valley isn't a detour? What if the valley is the path? Now, we're checking out Psalm 23 because the author, King David, knew a thing or two about going through valleys' hard seasons. He knew them the way most of us know our own kitchens, up close and personal from the ground up. See, old Dave was a simple shepherd boy, tending his dad, Jesse's flock, decades before he ever wore a crown. And that background is everything for understanding what this psalm's doing. He mentions green pastures, still waters, a banquet table set right in the middle of enemy territory, a cup that won't stop overflowing. If you've checked out previous lessons, this psalm is going to hit you differently since you know what it cost David to get to a place where he could write these words. And at the same time, this is a great starting passage for those who want to make Bible study a habit. Psalm 23 is one of the most recognized pieces of writing in human history. Like, people recite this at funerals, declare it at championship moments, quote it at weddings. People who've never cracked open a Bible in their lives can usually get through at least the first line. That familiarity is genuinely beautiful, but it can also work against you. When something gets that familiar, it can lose its significance and kind of just sits there, looking pretty. And that would be a real shame with this one. So let's dive into its background. The psalm doesn't point to any specific historical crisis, but it sounds like a confession that could arise from a lifetime of being protected through danger, wilderness, political stress, and uncertainty. And if you've read the previous psalms, David definitely checks all of those. A lot of scholars and theologians connect the psalm to Israel's broader story, especially the exodus from Egypt and their wilderness journey of 40 years afterwards, where God led, fed, and protected his people like a shepherd. In a royal reading, it also reflects God's shepherding of the king and, through the king, the people. Psalm 23 is written by a man who knew the valley as a shepherd walking them and as a king surviving them. And its message isn't hang in there, buddy, it'll get better eventually. Its message is way bolder than that. It's saying go. Walk into that valley. Walk through it confidently, because the shepherd is already in there, and his presence changes the whole nature of the place. And there's one more layer here that's worth knowing. In the ancient Near East, kings were routinely called shepherds of the people. It was basically a royal job title. So when David, the king, opens this psalm by calling the Lord his shepherd, that would have stopped his original audience cold. He's essentially saying, I run the country, and I am still the sheep. That's not weakness, folks. That might honestly be the most courageous thing he ever said. All we got to do is open up to Psalm 23. And trust me, once you see what David's really doing in here, you're never going to hear this one quite the same way again. So let's check this scripture out. I'm reading the ESV, but feel free to follow along with whatever version you prefer. Let's jump in with verses 1 and 2, where David kicks things off with what sounds like a pretty staggering financial declaration. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. I shall not want. Okay, so in the original Hebrew, that's not wishful thinking. That's not David crossing his fingers and hoping for the best. It's a statement of account, like a balance sheet. He's saying, I have everything I need to execute the mission in front of me right now. Not everything I want. Not everything my anxiety is currently screaming that I need. Everything required for where God has me in this specific moment. That distinction matters a lot because it means I shall not want isn't a blank check. It's a declaration that the shepherd has already done the math on this leg of the journey, and he doesn't miscalculate. And that he makes me lie down in green pastures part. Well, here's a fun fact that old Dave knew from personal experience. Sheep won't lie down unless 3 things are true. They've got to be free from fear, free from conflict with the other sheep, and free from hunger. A sheep lying down in a pasture is a sheep that is completely at rest, not faking it, not white-knuckling it, actually at peace. The shepherd creates those conditions. and he leads beside still waters, not rushing ones, because sheep genuinely won't drink from a fast-moving stream. They'll dehydrate before they step into moving water. The shepherd knows that. He finds the still place. And David knows this from experience because he used to be the shepherd finding that place for somebody else. That's a beautiful little detail when you think about it, isn't it? Now on to verse 3, where a Hebrew word here is going to reframe everything. He restores my soul. He leads me in paths of righteousness for his name's sake. So the Hebrew word translated as restores here is shub. And shub is the same word used all over the Old Testament for repentance, for turning back. So God isn't just patching a broken soul like you'd run a system update on a device that's been glitching. What he's actually doing is reorienting us, turning us back toward himself when we've drifted off course. The restoration isn't just emotional repair, no. It's directional correction. And he does it for his name's sake, which means his own reputation is on the line for how his sheep turn out. He's personally invested in getting you back on the path. That's not a small thing, folks. Verse 4 now, the shadow. And this one is the hinge the whole psalm swings on. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. Even though I walk through, not into, not around, not just past the entrance of, through. David isn't pitching a tent in the valley. He's not unpacking his bags in the shadows. He's moving. The valley is a passage, not a permanent address. And here's the thing that gets me every time I process this verse. The comfort isn't the removal of the danger. It's the presence of the shepherd in the middle of it. The rod was used to fight off predators, protection and discipline. The staff was used to guide and rescue sheep that got stuck. Comfort and correction. Both of them together. Because sometimes what feels like God making things harder is actually God keeping you alive and pointed in the right direction. And look, we've seen David in cave after cave, valley after valley, crying out with everything he had. And the answer Psalm 23 gives to all of that isn't eventually the valley ends. It's I am with you in it. Right now, step for step. That reframe is huge, folks, because it means you don't have to wait until you're on the other side to experience God's peace. You can have it right here, right in the middle of the hard thing. The shepherd didn't clock out when you entered the valley. He walked in with you. Okay, so verse 5, the banquet. Let's watch how the whole image shifts. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil, my cup overflows. Okay, so we just went from a shepherd and his sheep to a host and his guest. And here's what's wild about it. The host doesn't wait for the enemies to clear the room before he sets the table. He sets it right there, in front of them, while they're watching. God isn't just protecting you from your enemies, he's throwing a dinner party in their faces. Your hardest season becomes a public display of his favor. The enemies are still in the room, the pressure hasn't let up, and you're sitting at a banquet table with oil on your head, which in the ancient world was a sign of honor and celebration, and a cup that won't stop filling up. That's not just provision, that's vindication. And it connects directly to Psalm 17, where David asked God to be his vindicator. Here's the answer. Not a courtroom verdict, but a banquet in a battlefield. And finally, verse 6, and this is going to close our whole Psalm series out in the most fitting way possible. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. The word follow in Hebrew is radaf, and radaf doesn't mean a casual trailing behind. It means to chase, to pursue, to hunt. It's the same word used when enemies are in hot pursuit on a battlefield. David is saying goodness and mercy aren't just ambling along somewhere behind him hoping to catch up. They are in active, aggressive, intentional pursuit. God's grace isn't passive. It's predatory. It's hunting you down. And the psalm wraps up not with a sigh of relief, but with a declaration of permanent belonging. I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Not visiting, dwelling. The sheep has come all the way home. And that Right there is where this entire journey has been headed from Psalm 1 all the way to this moment. So here's what I want to leave you with before we get to application. If goodness and mercy are actively, aggressively chasing you right now, why are you still running? What would it look like to just walk, wait, be patient, and let them catch you? Because Psalm 23 isn't a psalm about white-knuckling your way through hard seasons. It's a psalm about being so secure in the shepherd's presence that the circumstances just lose their grip on you. That's not just comfort, that's freedom. All right, folks, here's the thing about Psalm 23. It's easy to love it from a distance, nod along, think, yeah, that's beautiful, and then walk right back into your valley doing the exact same thing you were doing before. And this passage in the Bible isn't there just so we could admire it. It's here so we could live it. So let's see what that actually looks like. The want check. Here's an honest question. What's the one thing you feel like you absolutely have to be okay? The thing that if it doesn't come through, starts making you wonder if God's even paying attention. Because I shall not want isn't saying your life is going to be problem-free. It's saying the shepherd has already accounted for everything you actually need for the path you're currently on. The invitation is to let him define your needs instead of letting your anxiety do it. And those two lists look really different from each other. Anxiety's list is long, urgent, and updates itself every 5 minutes. The shepherd's list is specific, sufficient, and already covered. So which list are you shopping from right now? Presence over problem. Most of the time when we're in a valley, we're praying for the exit. Get me out of this. Make it stop. And that's not a wrong prayer. David prayed versions of that all through this series, and God heard every single one of them. But Psalm 23 offers something that goes deeper than an exit. It offers a companion for the journey. The shepherd isn't waiting at the other end of the valley with a welcome back banner. He's in it with you, rod and staff in hand, step for step. And sometimes, not always, but sometimes, God's answer to get me out of this is I'm right here in it with you, and we're walking through it together. That's not a consolation prize, that's the point. The presence of the shepherd is the solution, which means you can move forward with confidence even when you can't see the end of the valley yet, because you know who's walking next to you. The banquet perspective. Next time you feel surrounded by critics, by pressure, by circumstances that feel like they're tightening on every side, try praying verse 5 instead of asking for everybody to just go away. Thank God for the table he's setting right there in the middle of it, because the banquet doesn't happen after the battle. It happens during it, in front of the very things that are trying to take you out. That's defiance, folks. That's the kind of bold faith that looks the hard thing square in the face and says, my cup is overflowing anyway. The shepherd showed up anyway. And nothing in this room gets to take that from me. That's not denial of the difficulty. That's declaration of the victory, right in the middle of the fight. So here's what we're taking with us today, folks, and what we're taking with us at the close of this whole season. Psalm 23 isn't a psalm about surviving the valley. It's a psalm about walking through it boldly with a shepherd who already calculated the provision before the journey started, who reorients you when you drift, who throws a banquet in the middle of the battle, and who sends goodness and mercy on a full sprint after you every single day of your life. That's the God we've been studying together from Psalm 1 all the way to this moment. And if there's one thing this entire series has been saying from every angle, from the rooted tree to the desert courtroom, to the cross to the shepherd's field, it's this. The valley is not the end of the story. It never was. It's the path, and he's been on it with you the whole time. So this might be our last stop in the Psalms, but there's plenty more where that came from. This book in the Bible is composed of 150 Psalms altogether, so please do your own deep dive into them in your own time. Whether you've been here since Psalm 1 or you stumbled across this video today and somehow ended up at the series finale, you're here. And the same God who led David through every cave, every courtroom, every breaking point, every shadow, he led you here too. Well, the algorithm also probably had a bit of a hand in it, but you get the idea. But here are your bot challenges for the week. The I Shall Not Want Journal. Write down your biggest fear about the future, the thing that keeps running in the background like an app you forgot to close. Underneath it, write this: The Lord is my shepherd. I have everything I need to walk through this. Not because everything is fine, because the shepherd already did the math, and he doesn't miscalculate. The Sabbath lie down. If you've been running on empty, perpetually moving, never still, take 30 minutes today. No phone, no task list, no noise, just stillness. Let the shepherd restore your soul. Not because you earned the rest, because the sheep doesn't manufacture its own peace. It lies down because the shepherd created the conditions for it. Let him do that for you today. The banquet perspective. The next time you feel surrounded by critics, pressure, or circumstances closing in, pray verse 5 out loud. Thank God for the table he's setting right there in the middle of it. Let it be an act of defiance, not desperation, because your cup is overflowing, even here, especially here. This week, and honestly beyond this week, sit with this. Are you walking through your valley, or have you started putting down roots in it? And if the Lord really is your shepherd, what would it look like to actually let him carry what you've been dragging on your own and just walk forward? Drop your thoughts in the comments, folks. Tell us what this series meant to you. Tell us which psalm resonated with you the most. Tell us where you are right now, valley, pasture, or somewhere in between. If this series has meant something to you, share this one with somebody who needs to hear that the valley is not the end of the story. It's the path. May the Lord richly bless the readers, hearers, and doers of his holy word. Name's Bot, and as always, thanks for being here, folks. Let's keep growing in God's word together, and I'll see you in the next one.